Your man, Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2019 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie Tee aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2019 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale. Single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so, we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in said team's draft. We'll apply bonuses when necessary, get an aggregate score, divide by the number of picks, which will yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control, as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be the Bucks are next. Next, Tampa Bay. Next, TB. Next, Tampa Bay Bucks. You get where I'm going. As a matter of fact, next team up in the series is none other than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Or as I like to say, what the buck, man? What the buck? And I don't honestly know what the buck is going on out there. However, I can tell you something that I noticed looking at this roster and kind of combing over some things, trying to reconcile in my brain what direction the Buccaneers are going in. Obviously, I love the hire of Bruce Arians. BA is my guy. Uncle Bruce is the right man to try to turn Jameis Winston into an NFL quarterback, a consistent NFL quarterback. And this is his last hope in Tampa. If it doesn't work with BA in year one, then Jameis is probably going to be asked to leave. And so I love the move there, but I already talked to everyone that is a Bucs fan, and I've done a video and I've talked about this ad nauseum. You're only getting 2 years max out of Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay. So whatever you're going to do, you better do it very quickly, because he's going to get burnt out. We know his health isn't the greatest. That's why he left Arizona. And so you're on borrowed time with Bruce Arians, but you got a guy probably waiting in the wings in Todd Bowles that I really like and I respect as a defensive coordinator. And I think he isn't that bad of a head coach now. Jets fans may disagree and differ with me there, but that's another discussion for another day. Bottom line is, I looked at this roster and I said, you know what? This is a really young team. And and sometimes these things don't dawn on you if you're not a fan of that team and you're not going through the everyday minutia of the additions, the subtractions, and the growing pains, the injuries. Guys can't play because they're not healthy, that sort of thing. You only know unless you're going through it as a fan. And so I had to delve a little deeper, because this Buccaneers team, remember, I told everyone last year that the Bucs were going to take a step backwards, and no one wanted to believe me. Remember, the Bucs were hard charging at the end of 2017. They barely missed the postseason. Everyone thought, here come the Bucs, 2018. I got ridiculed. There were a lot of Bucs fans that were upset at me last year for presuming that the Bucs were going to take a step backwards. I was right. They took I didn't expect the step to be that far back, but I thought they'd take a step back. I thought they went 9-7 at the end of 17, if I'm not mistaken. They went 9-7. I said they're going to go 7-9. They're going to take a step back. They took a massive step back. But that's nor here nor there. We'll see. More change could be on the horizon, because if this shit doesn't work, Jason Light is gone. I thought he actually was going to be gone with Dirk Cutter. But again, another story for another day. I look at this roster and it's young. You look at all the positions and what they decided to attack in this draft, and you say to yourself, you just took 97 corners last year. Did you really need to go heavy on the secondary again? Over the last 3 years or so, I swear you've selected at least 3 or 4 corners and 2 safeties. Do you really need to be going down that avenue again? And then you look at the roster and you're like, they got rid of all the veterans. It's a bunch of young guys. It's the blind leading the blind. Yes, they needed more corner help. I'm like, okay, all right. So I get it. It's a lot of young guys, and when you don't re-sign Quan Alexander for various reasons, injury obviously probably at the top of that list. When you tell Gerald McCoy, sayonara, it's a really young team. Now, yeah, you brought in Ndamukong Suh, but he's hired and rented help. He's making 1-year stops probably for the remainder of his career. I don't see him signing a long-term deal anywhere. He's now a hired gun. Essentially, everywhere he goes, he's going to sign a 1-year, right around $10 million deal, and that's what he's going to do until his career is done. This may be his last stop. We'll see. But nonetheless, it's a very young football team. Ryan Fitzpatrick was a calming influence as a veteran. He's gone. Brent Grimes, calming influence as a veteran, he's gone. And again, you go down the list. Gerald McCoy, calming influence as a veteran, he's gone. It's a young football team, man. And when you look at them across the board, they're really young. Now they got some guys that are starting to come along as veterans, like a Mike Evans, Mikey, at the wide receiver position. Some of the offensive linemen are starting to come into their own as veterans in this league, and you bring in a couple of guys, and we'll see how this roster takes shape now that Bruce Arians has gotten his hands on this roster a little bit. You see guys like Andre Ellington coming over from Arizona. You see another Arizona Cardinal mainstay coming over in Dion Buchanan. So they're infusing their guys into the roster a bit. Some veterans that can come in and help right away. We'll see how those things work out. Bashad Perriman going to get a second lease on life at the receiver position here in Tampa Bay. We'll see how that goes. But bottom line is, it's a young football team. And when it's so young like the Bucs are, I think you have to have patience and allow this whole thing to take shape. And so you really don't know. And that's why I think they were so sold on their first pick in this draft, because he comes in and right away you're getting a guy that's going to step into the locker room and operate and conduct himself like an 8-year vet. And they need that in a young locker room, even though himself, he's going to be a rookie. They need that leadership, though. They need those kinds of guys in this locker room because, like I said, it's a very young football team. With that being said, let's jump into this draft. This is an important one for Jason Light, I think, because if this draft doesn't go well, and honestly speaking, we won't know how good this draft is for at least 3 years, so I probably shouldn't say that. If this season doesn't go well, Jason Light probably won't see the light of day and won't see these guys through and won't know if this draft actually was productive for him or not, because he probably won't be around if the Bucs don't turn it around in 2019. We'll see what happens, but nonetheless, this is a draft. I'm going to just tell you right up front, I'm going to be blunt and brutally honest with you. Not my favorite draft. One of the lower scored drafts in my 2019 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. That doesn't mean that these guys can't be successful for the Bucs. I'm just not blown away by the talent overall here, and I'm not blown away by the selections and when they were made, probably more importantly so than the actual players and the talent themselves. It's when these picks were made. Anyway, let's jump into this draft. I'm not upset about the first pick. 5th overall, linebacker out of LSU, Devin White, is the selection to get this Bucs draft underway. So, Devin White, first pick. Love the athleticism. Love the pedigree. LSU has had a track record of late of really sending some quality backers to the NFL. Deion Jones, Quan Alexander, the list goes on and on and on. These guys have come in and been contributors really from day one. A lot of these guys have. And you're hoping that Devin White is the next guy in line to really come in the league and have some success as an LSU defender. That being said, I do have some questions and some doubts about some of the things he's capable of doing at the next level. You saw my breakdown. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Devin White, not going to get it here. I've already done that on my Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown, including film of Devin White and what he brings to the table for this Buccaneers football team and defense, then check out my Louie Tee Network playlist on the channel. Go to the Draft Prospects 101 series 2019, obviously, and there you'll find all the players I was able to get to prior to the draft, including Devin White. And look, I love Devin White's athleticism. I love his leadership. Apparently, he's a tremendous leader on and off the field. Again, that's something I can't quantify, but if everyone's saying it, it's probably true. So that's a big coup for them there as well. I love a lot of his intangibles. Love how he finds the football. Again, you can't teach his athleticism and speed and his relentlessness, but there are some question marks. Is he big enough? Can he stand up to some of these offensive linemen and blockers? Because I saw him moved quite a bit in the run game. I don't know if he's as good as everyone's trying to sell me on in the pass game as a defender. A lot of people are trying to tell me that he's the better of the two Devins. I told you I think Devin Bush is the better of the two Devins. I may be wrong about this, okay? I've been wrong about backers in the past. Again, it's probably the hardest position to really know what the hell they're being asked to do, because linebackers, are really a product of their environment and more so their coaching staff. If they're being coached to be patient, to wait, allow the play to develop, then again, how can you fault them for doing what they've been taught to do? You don't know what their job or responsibility is necessarily. You don't know how they're being coached. So it's hard to really be extra critical, hypercritical of backers sometimes. But again, you can see when guys are passive. You can see when guys are aggressive. You can see when guys are making plays, making mistakes, that sort of thing. Look, this guy's a football player. At the end of the day, you need elite level football players. He's an elite level football player. Now, again, some of the things that I deemed weaknesses and things that I think he needs to improve, we'll see if he can do that at the next level. Maybe I'm just wrong about him. Maybe he's going to be exceptional for the Bucs. I think he's going to step in and be a really good backer for you. I don't know if he's going to live up to the overall 5th pick in the draft hype or not, but nonetheless, I think this guy is going to be big for you. Let's look at your needs quickly, and let's take linebacker off the needs list, as that was your biggest need going into the draft. Obviously, no Quan Alexander. You bring in Deone Buchanan, but he's a hybrid guy, and so you were really lacking at the linebacker position, if you ask me. Enter in Devin White. I think he comes right in, going to fit into a big position of need for this football team, give you more team speed defensively, and again, the leadership that you currently lack on this roster. He's going to fit in to that role probably immediately as well. But you look at the other positions, cornerback, I talked about the mass exodus at the cornerback position, got rid of all the dead weight, all of the veterans, all the guys that you didn't think were going to produce at a high level for you. And really all you were left with were young guys, MJ Stewart, Vernon Hargraves III, Colton Davis, all of these young guys that you've drafted over the last couple of years. They were the ones left standing when the dust settled, smoke cleared. And really, you didn't have a lot of depth behind those guys. So, yeah, it was a necessity that you went out and you drafted a couple more corners. I didn't think that was the case until I actually looked at this roster. So, cornerback was a major need. Could have easily been your number 1 need, if you want to be honest. But it's right there at number 2. Number 3 for me, edge rusher. Obviously, the Jason Pierre-Paul situation in the offseason really puts a damper on your edge rushing situation. So now you're going to have other guys step up. It's not ideal in Tampa right now, but you've got a number of different guys. You're switching defenses. I believe now you're going to play a 3-4 defense under Todd Bowles. If that is in fact the case, it's a different look for some of these guys that are base 4-3 defensive ends that are now going to be asked to stand up in a 2-point stance and no longer have their hands in the dirt. Or you could be playing a 4-3 still. It looks like, and Todd Bowles has always been a 3-4 guy, even back in his days in Arizona the first time around, into New York with the Jets. So I'm assuming that this is going to be a 3-4 defense and that you're going to have some parts that don't fit. And generally, year 1 is rough in the conversion from a 4-3 to a 3-4 because a lot of the parts don't necessarily fit. And you have to find guys that fit the roles that you're looking for. So, again, could be a little bit of a transition there if, in fact, you're moving to a 3-4 defense. Again, in this league, with all the 3 and 4, 5 receiver sets, 2 tight end sets, things of that nature, you're going to be in an even front a lot of times anyway in nickel. So, I'm not going to really harp on that. But, nonetheless, you need edge rushing help. Also, defensive line. Obviously, Gerald McCoy, gone, duh. Yep, Ndamukong Suh in. So you get a trade-off there, but I still think the defensive line is lacking. I still think you need some depth there, so wouldn't hurt to add another defensive lineman. Running back, for me, I looked at the position. Obviously, Ronald Jones was a second-round pick last year. Didn't get a lot of run with the last coaching staff. He's going to get, I think, his fair share of opportunity this year. But you look at the depth behind him, I don't necessarily love what you have behind him. Obviously, you got a guy there out of Auburn that has been really solid for you, and a lot of Bucs fans love him. That's cool. But then after him, it's Andre Ellington and I think the Ozigbo kid from Ungwale kid from Nebraska, if I'm not mistaken. It's not a lot on the roster. All right, and then Andre Ellie. So, again, I'm not blown away by what you have at running back. I'd love to add one more piece there, but they didn't decide to do that in the draft, and they didn't really get a lot via the way of free agency in terms of undrafted guys. So that's one of those positions you better hope no one gets injured. because it could be really thin pickings there at the running back position. And then place kicker, look, I hate putting this on the list. I really do. First of all, you know how I am, especially with this team. When you're talking about drafted kickers, I don't even want to promote that with this team because they don't know how to act when it comes to drafting kickers. They do stupid things that cost them. I told them it was dumb then. They figured it out 2 years later. Look, bottom line is, look, Cairo Santos was good. He wasn't great. You lost games last season because of Chandler Catanzaro. You brought in Cairo Santos. He was better. But of course he was better because Chandler Catanzaro was awful. So you've had issues kicking the last 3 years strong. And boy, you could use Matt Bryant. I bet you're regretting. And I know that's a while ago. But boy, you could have used some Matt Bryant the last 5-6 years. Boy. Anyway, you need a kicker. At least someone to come in and push Cairo Santos and make sure he's the right man for the job. You drafted a kicker. I'm not mad at it. And you didn't break any rules this time. So, again, as long as you follow the rules, you know the rules to the game, and you play the right way, we have no qualms here. And so you did that as well. So those are my needs for the Bucs. You could have easily thrown wide receiver on the list. I don't think receiver is a need because, A, I think you've got a healthy group of receivers. Yes, you lost Humphrey in free agency, but you still got Mikey, you still got the Penn State kid, Chris Godwin, you still got the Justin Watson kid you drafted last year. You still got a number of dudes, and then to even make it matters even better, you get Anthony Johnson as an undrafted rookie, and you got another guy that I like as an undrafted rookie wide receiver in DeMarcus Lodge. So there's some stuff there. And then you drafted another guy in this draft that's going to make your football team that I absolutely love. So wide receiver, not on this list because I thought you were fine with what you did. Nonetheless, let's jump into the draft. You know how I feel about Devin White. My comp for him is Zach Brown. I think he's got some deficiencies. I think he's going to be one hell of a football player, though. And I think he's going to be a guy that may surprise me and may be even better than I'm giving him credit for. But nonetheless, it was a really good pick at number 5. You couldn't really go wrong with what was there and available for you. And you took a guy that fit a big-time position of need. And so in the first round, 5th overall selection, linebacker out of LSU, Devin White for me is...
Hits one high! Hits it deep! It is out of here!
So we move on to the second round, 39th overall selection. Defensive back out of Central Michigan, Sean Bunting is the pick. So Sean Bunting is the selection at 39 now. I remember when I was live doing the draft party, my man Ree, who is an avid Buccaneers fan and one of my favorite guys to chop it up with, we go way back since I started this thing, and he was like really upset at this pick. And he had every right to be because, first of all, Sean Bunting, of all the corners that were available, remember, the corners didn't come off the board until the second round. He was the 4th corner taken in this draft. Think about that for a second. I get it. This wasn't the greatest crop of cornerbacks, all right? But 4th corner behind Murphy, Rock Ya-Sin, and Baker out of Georgia? Like, seriously? That he was the 4th corner taken? Ahead of guys that I love like Justin Lane. You wanted a long perimeter corner? Justin Lane was the man for the job, all right? Which is what I think you were looking for here in Bunting, but Justin Lane, to me, much better. And probably fits Todd Bowles' defense a little bit better, but okay, fine. You decided to go with Sean Bunting. Better than Greedy Williams? Like, again, Greedy doesn't want to tackle, and maybe that was something that was a deal breaker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I get it. But really, Sean Bunting at 39? Okay, fine. You made the selection. Let's talk about it. 6 feet. $195 and quarterback was a need. Okay, this was something that you needed to address. Let's take it off the board. All right. $195, ran a 4.4 240, 41.5-inch vert. So you see the explosiveness there with the numbers. I didn't always see him playing to that time though. Okay, so let's just throw that out there. Passes the NFL eyeball test with testing and ball production to boot. All right, 9 career INTs, so he's going after the football. That's always a big time get for a team, and that's always something that teams are looking for. Guys that have ball production, that know how to find the football when it is in flight. Even still, Bunting is limp at the line of scrimmage with physical receivers and has a tendency to be handsy down the field. While his measurables and production look good on the surface, there is a question. Can he be productive versus NFL caliber wide receivers and quarterbacks? He didn't see a lot of those in the MAC, and I wasn't impressed with the level of competition. Again, it's still a Division I school, so I don't want to make it seem like he was playing at Division 3 or 2 Washburn or something like that. But here's a guy that I looked at and I said to myself, how do you feel about this guy? Does your perception of this pick change after really digging into the film and studying this guy? Your initial reaction to the pick was, ugh. Did that change by watching him? No, it really didn't. I'm just as disappointed about him being the 4th selected corner now as I was then when I reacted and really didn't know much about him other than, hey, the guy tested well at the combine. So I can tell you this. There's really good ball production. I see a guy that's not afraid to tackle, but I see a guy that gets manhandled at the line of scrimmage. In run support, when guys are blocking him, he gets blocked, okay? I see a guy that at point of contact, if a receiver wants to get to the stem of a route and wants to give him a little shove, he's going to go flying. He's a very frail body boy out there, and I can tell you this much. I thought there were better corners that could have fit this profile that you were looking for. Again, I'm a Justin Lane guy out of Michigan State. I'm a Greedy Williams guy out of LSU. These are all guys that were still available on the board at the time of this selection, and you decided to go with Sean Bunting. Now, again, you can be proven right if this guy comes in and ends up being a stud. Now, you're going to compare him to some of the other guys that went later in this draft, and if he proves to be lesser than those guys, then this was a mistake. And I think this was a mistake, but we're going to find out in due time. All right, and that's what the beauty of the draft is. There's no exact science to this thing. And time reveals all. And so we'll find out if the Bucs were right or if they were wrong. I just don't love the selection here of Sean Bunting when there were other guys. Again, if you're looking for a longer corner, yes, his ball skills are tremendous, and that does add to his intrigue. But I look at him and I see other guys in this draft that were just, to me, flat out better cover corners in Todd Bowles' system, where he is very reliant on his corners outside to hold it down because he likes to bring pressure. I'm not sure if Sean Bunting is the guy I want out wide. I'm just not. But we will see. Nonetheless, second round, 39th overall selection, defensive back out of Central Michigan, Sean Bunting for me is my comp for him is Trey Waynes, the Minnesota Vikings corner that has had his fair share of ups and downs in the league. He's solid. I don't know if he's ever going to be worthy of the first round pick that he was selected at, but nonetheless, he's been a solid contributor in this league. Maybe Sean Bunting will be the same kind of prospect. We'll see. Anyway, third round, 94th overall selection, defensive back out of Auburn, Jamel Dean is the pick. So again, going back to live draft day, draft party, when this was made, this selection was made, my man Reed was just really sick to his stomach with what the Bucs were doing. And he really didn't have an idea of what direction they were going in at the time of the draft, because here we are, second round, various different needs, various different players on the board, and they go corner again. And then to make matters worse, it's a corner that, he tested well at the combine, but you're like, Jamel Dean? Like, really? What are we doing here? So I can tell you this. I actually like Jamel Dean a little bit more than I do Sean Bunting, but for different reasons. Now, I understand why Bunting is a higher prospect than a Jamel Dean. There are some issues with Dean physically. If he's right physically, then I think he could easily be a guy that is better than Sean Bunting, to be honest with you. But you can't knock the ball production, and that's what Sean Bunting brings to the table. Jamel Dean, not so much. So, honestly, I get why he's a guy that is a little bit less thought of, and obviously there are other concerns as well. So 6'1", 206 pounds, 32-inch arms, 4'3", 40 guy, 41-inch vert, so explosion, speed. This guy checks just about every box you're looking for in terms of the eyeball test. Height, weight, speed specimen that overcame injuries in high school and college to become a solid NFL prospect. Multiple knee injuries disqualified him from his initial commitment of Ohio State after failing their physical. They terminated his scholarship offer. Then he landed at Auburn after they medically cleared him after getting a second opinion from Dr. James Andrews. But then before he could even play a single snap for Auburn, he tears his knee up again and has to miss the entire season. He did bounce back the last 2 years and has been healthy, despite playing the early portion of 2018 with a soft cast on his hand. If you watch him in the Washington game, he had a cast on his hand, which shows me toughness because, again, a corner needs his hands, whether you're talking about jamming a guy at the line of scrimmage or trying to pick a ball off. And he actually picked off a pass in that game, which was remarkable. It wasn't the prettiest pick, but hey, I'm not going to knock a guy for playing with a cast on his hand and picking the pass off, all right? In any event, that was to protect a finger injury that he had. But Dean lacks the consistency that the cornerback position demands. Disrupting routes early on, I think he struggles with the consistency of dislodging guys and knocking them off of their routes. Locating the ball in the air, he's inconsistent in that department as well. But I saw as the season wore on, he got better at that. So I feel like he's a guy that's getting better at locating the football. Early on in the season, I didn't feel that way as much. And then transitioning from his breaks, sometimes he's a little slow to come out of that back pedal and drive onto the football. But these are all things that I feel like he can get better at. But when he's eyeing the QB or the ball, he's a very capable defensive back with the physical traits that could make him a quality NFL defender. My comp for him is Fabian Moreau, the Washington Redskins selection out of the third round and a couple of drafts ago out of UCLA. Guy with all the physical tools you're looking for, but was still raw coming out of UCLA. Same thing I feel about Jamel Dean coming out of Auburn. Look, you can't teach 6'1", 206 with 32-inch arms running a 4.3. You either have those measurables or you don't. This guy is a rare specimen at the cornerback position. Now the question is he a football player or what? And I think he is. I think there's something to him when he's able to identify route concepts and be in the hip pocket of that receiver underneath. A lot of times I like him underneath. When he gets down the field, I don't think he trusts himself yet. I watched him in the LSU game, and there was good Jamel Dean. There was bad Jamel Dean in that game. He gives up a dig route over the middle of the field, slow to transition out of his back pedal, and allows a 12-yard dig over the middle of the football field. That was a pass he could have broken up. Then you watch him on a slant. He's not having any of it. Breaks that up and does it beautifully. All right, play down the field. All right, he's in perfect position in the hip pocket of the wide receiver. He's in perfect trail technique. There's no reason for him to interfere. Locates the football, does everything right, but he's got the receiver's hand in he's grabbing his arm and holding it down and not allowing him to get two hands up to catch the football. And they throw the flag. They caught him with his hand in the cookie jar. And I'm like, why? You didn't have to do that. You were in perfect position. Trust your athletic ability. Trust yourself. So I still think he's got some things to work on, but I like the measurables. I like the talent. There's something here. And so third round, 94th pick overall, defensive back out of Auburn, Jamel Dean for me is so we go now to the next third round pick. Bucks had two in the third round. 99th overall pick, defensive back out of Kentucky, Mike Edwards is the selection. So this is when I started to say, all right, Bucks, what the hell are we doing right now? Another defensive back? Seriously? Like, again, and I made my point earlier, so I'm not going to keep harping on that. But I'm like, damn, how many times are we going to do this over the last 3 drafts? Like, what are we doing right now? But I get it. I understand, because when you look at the roster, there's some holes. No more Chris Conte. All right, another veteran out of the locker room. You got to add some more young guys in there. I get it. I understand. So, Mike Edwards, interesting pick. Let's break him down quickly. 5'10", 203-pound safety, 4'5" guy, 37-inch vert. So got some solid athleticism. He proclaimed himself the Honey Badger. Don't do that. Okay, stop. Don't do that. All right. Nonetheless, let other people give you nicknames. You don't give yourself a nickname. Okay, that's the rule. I didn't make the rules up. I just abide by them. All right. An active safety that seems to always be around the action. While he may misdiagnose proper angles and gaps or get caught flat-footed from time to time in coverage, Edwards makes up for it with above-average instincts and ball skills. 10 career interceptions. So you see a trend here. Bucks going after guys that are ball hungry, guys that are starving to make plays. They're looking for guys with ball production and ball skills. Mike Edwards fits that DNA profile to a T. Along with those 10 interceptions, 2 of them going to the crib. Ring, ring. House call from Mike Edwards to the house. So this is a guy that, when he gets the football in his hands, looking to make something happen. All right. Now, as a tackler, he won't overwhelm you, all right, with physicality, but he gets the job done most of the time. I did see him overrun some plays. I did see him miss some tackles. But for the most part, he's a wrap and pull and drag down type of guy. So I don't really give a shit how you get guys down, just get them down. And he generally does that. So again, this is another guy that I look at and I say, I see the fit in the defensive scheme of one Todd Bowles. He likes safeties that have a knack for being around the football. You know, those are the guys that play best under him because, again, he's an aggressive play caller. Guys in the secondary are going to be heavily relied upon. They're going to have to be able to stay with these receivers. They're going to have to be smart football players and cover a lot of ground because, again, Todd Bowles never been one afraid to throw the kitchen sink at a team, at a quarterback, especially if he knows you struggle with blitz. He's going to give you a steady diet of them. So he's going to ask a lot of his guys in the secondary. And this is a guy, Mike Edwards, that can give you a little something. So my comp for him is Kevin Byard, a guy that a lot of people had a lot of the same things to say about him. I'm included. Now, I was in love with Kevin Byard's ball skills, but I wasn't sure if he was good enough in man-to-man coverage. I'm not sure if Mike Edwards is good enough in man-to-man coverage. I know Mike Edwards has tremendous ball skills. Kevin Byard had tremendous ball skills coming out of Middle Tennessee State. I wasn't necessarily in love with Kevin Byard as a tackle. I'm not in love necessarily with Mike Edwards as a tackler. But the guy just figures it out. He just knows how to play the game, and he knows how to find himself in the right place at the right time, similar to Kevin Byard. And so that's why he's my comp here. And look, I think this is a guy that could actually turn out to be really solid for you here in the third round. 99th overall selection, defensive back out of Kentucky. Mike Edwards, for me, is so we move on to the fourth round, 107th overall selection. Edge rusher out of Iowa, Anthony Nelson, is the pick. All right, so edge rusher was a major need. I said that it was the third biggest need, so let's take that off the board now as the Bucks address that here in the fourth round with Anthony Nelson. I feel like this is a duplicate of a guy you already have on the roster. We'll get to that a little bit later on, but eerily similar size, length. He looks just like him. I actually thought that the player that I'm comping him to was a little bit better coming out of college, but the numbers don't say that. So anyway, Anthony Nelson, 6'7", 271 pounds, 35-inch arms, 4'8", 240. Eerily enough, and this is crazy, he looks the part of a base 4'3" defensive end. I'm not sure what you guys are going to play. Again, I don't want to harp on this because a lot of the time in this league with the way NFL offenses are run, you're going to be in even fronts anyway, meaning you're probably going to be in nickel, which means you're going to have 4 defensive linemen on the field rushing the quarterback most likely because of the way NFL offenses choose to attack defenses in today's league. So he might be able to play base, 4'3" defensive end in passing situations. You may be able to kick him down inside. Who knows? You may ask him to gain some weight, and he may be a 5 tech for you. He may just stand up and be an outside linebacker, which is, I think, what the Bucs are asking him to do right now. So, again, we'll see. Nonetheless, an intriguing prospect that looks the part of a base 4'3" defensive end, or with time and more bulk, maybe a 5 tech in a base 3-4 defense. Either way, at 6'7", 270 pounds with 35-inch arms, Anthony Nelson looks the part of an NFL defender. His 24 career sacks, that's a lot of goddamn sacks, especially in just 3 seasons in Iowa, speaks to his potential. His motor, his relentlessness, and length are his best attributes to date. If Nelson can add some strength and diversity to his move Rolodex, he could actually be a force at the NFL level. Now, he strikes me as a guy that's a little stiff, not going to necessarily bend any corners or anything like that. Not a freaky athlete or anything of the sort, but he's a really solid, all right? My favorite move that he has, and really it's his only move if you want to be honest, but it's a damn good one, especially with 35-inch arms. He's got a devastatingly accurate and really, really good latch and snatch technique. He's got to utilize his length more. He's got to come up with a bull rush because his ability to use his length should allow him to use the long arm of the law and really jack guys up, put them on skates. I didn't see that on tape. What I saw on tape was a guy that used quickness to win to the inside at times and then also had a beautiful latch and snatch, which is essentially him grabbing an offensive tackle and then pulling him and thrusting himself towards the quarterback into the backfield. And that worked to perfection. Saw him get a couple of sacks using the latch and snatch. Saw him get a pressure or 2 using the latch and snatch. So he knows how to use the latch and snatch. I want him to continue to use that length that he has to his advantage. But that's a good base to start with in terms of having pass rushing prowess. That latch and snatch is, to me, the most underutilized move of defensive linemen everywhere. Period. Edge rushers everywhere. Not enough guys utilize latch and snatch. Now, again, it always helps when you got longer arms so that you contact that tackle first and control the action. But nonetheless, I think anybody can use the latch and snatch if they're smart. Nonetheless, there's some stuff here with Anthony Nelson. And I think this is a guy that can be solid in the run game. I think he can get a little stronger again, as I mentioned. And I think he can find ways to get to the quarterback a little bit more creative, have more of a pass rush plan. Right now, it's either bull rush, fast move inside. And again, the bull rush doesn't work. So not like that's an option at this point. But it's either bull rush, which is ineffective, quick move inside, which is effective, or latch and snatch. Very effective. So I'd like to see him start using rips, start using spins, start using hard out. And I saw him try a hard outside, back inside. It was the slowest, most lethargic hard outside, back inside in the history of the move. So he's got to find other things that he's good at. But to me, my comp for him is Carl Nassib, a guy that you just acquired in the offseason last year. Really played well for you, but again, why are we acquiring duplicates? I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, that's what fits in this defense, and that's what you're looking for. And if that's the case, you got more than one. And Jason Pierre-Paul, when he comes back healthy, similar size, similar length, just like these guys, another long, active defender. So maybe you're looking for long, active defenders in this 3-4 defensive front. And if that's the case, you just added another one in Anthony Nelson here in the 4th round, 107th overall pick, defensive and edge rusher out of Iowa. Anthony Nelson for me is All right, so you followed the rules. I'm not going to kill you here. 5th round, 145th pick overall. Place kicker out of Utah, Matt Gay is the selection. Not a lot of time needs to be spent here. I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to ridicule you. We all know about your history selecting kickers. That's fine. That's over with. That's in the past. You didn't break any rules. 5th round or later, if you're going to select any kind of specialist, don't care what position they play. If they're a specialist, long snapper, punter, kicker, 5th round or later. You tried to break a rule again, and I would have slapped your ass with a massive backhand bitch slap had you done it again. But you learned your lesson. 5th round, you didn't break any rules. He's a place kicker. As you can see, it is a need. So again, not going to chastise you here. You didn't break any rules. It's a need. He comes in. Nothing's guaranteed to him. He's going to get a chance to compete. If he wins the job, great. If he doesn't, you move on and you keep it moving. Bottom line is, you have to be better kicking the football. Bruce Arians, I'm thinking he was very much in really a part of this pick here. Very much in the ear of Jason Light, because in his last year in Arizona, his kicking situation was horrible. And why was it horrible? Because he had Chandler Cantazzaro. You know all too well why it didn't work in Arizona, because you saw it firsthand in Tampa. So he don't want to go through that again. He wants guys that can put it through the upright. And I think you're looking for a guy to put this whole position to bed, and you're hoping Matt Gay is the guy. And I can say this much and then we'll move on. Both of their specialists got drafted. So they must be doing something right at Utah. Their punter got selected in this draft, and their place kicker got selected in this draft. So they're doing something right at Utah, and they put value and place emphasis on their specialists as both of these guys were selected. Again, didn't break any rules. Let's take kicker off the board. I hated that it was even up here, but it was a need in Tampa nonetheless. You took care of it in the 5th round. I don't have any problems. 5th round, 145th pick overall. Place kicker out of Utah, Matt Gay for me is... So probably my favorite pick in this Buccaneers draft is here in the 6th round, 208th overall selection, wide receiver out of Bowling Green. Scott Miller is the pick. All right, so Scott Miller is so fun. All right, I had a blast watching this guy. Had some monster games. One against Oregon, where he set a career high, like 7 grabs for $166. 8 Oregon alive. They didn't win, but he still was killing at Oregon D. And remember, Oregon was really good. This was a comeback season of sorts for them in 2018. And then I really, really had fun watching him against Western Michigan. He goes bananas on those guys. 8 grabs, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns. And this is a guy that I think not only is going to make your football team, he's going to be a difference maker on this football team. You lose Adam Humphrey in the offseason to Tennessee and free agency, and you're missing that slot guy, that guy that can win immediately and get open. And in a big-time difference in speed, he changes the way teams will have to defend you, because like having Deshaun Jackson last year, you got a legitimate guy that can take the top off the defense from anywhere on the field. Slot, out wide. This guy was an out wide receiver that moved around and played everywhere at Bowling Green. Slot, out wide. They sent him in motion. You name it, he did it for them, and he was exceptional. And the thing that jumped off the screen at me was initially I looked at the NFL.com website on this guy and was looking to see how big he was, because obviously he wasn't a combine invite, so I needed to gather all my information on him. And I see 5'9", and that's the number that I put down on my artwork, 5'9", buck 74. So I'm going in thinking I'm going to get a really small receiver. And in the first game I put on, I'm like, this guy can't be 5'9". Like, if he's 5'9", he's the biggest 5'9" I've ever seen in my life. And come to find out, he's 5'11". Now, I also said with that, he's the smallest 174 I've ever seen in my life too. And sure enough, he's really 5'11", 166. So I'm like, okay, both things make sense because I look at him and say, there's no way that guy's 5'9". That guy it looks every bit of 6 feet. 5'11", sounds good to me. Then the 174, I'm like, there's no way this guy's 175. There's no way. I know what buck 75 looks like. That's not it. This guy looks every bit of 165. He's 166. So I knew what I saw. And so it made a lot of sense. But one thing you cannot deny, this guy can fly. All right. This guy has pure, unadulterated speed. And you got to see it on tape. Now, again, he's playing in the MAC. All right. But I just told you he tore Oregon a new asshole. They've got athletes out there in the Pac-12, all right, at Oregon. So that made me feel a lot better. You know, it's one thing to be eating up, you know, Toledo and eating up Ohio and eating up, you know, Western Michigan and Central Michigan. It's another thing to be doing it against teams like Oregon. So this guy can run, period. End of discussion. But that wasn't the thing that really sold me because, look, he's 5'11", buck 66. You better be able to run. What was really striking was the toughness that this guy, because look, at that size too, you better be a hell of a route runner. And he is. So these aren't things that I worry about. These weren't things that concerned me. My concern was, how tough are you? Like, can I, because if you're going to play in the slot, I need to know that on 3rd and 7, you're going to run this 8-yard choice route, win, and not be afraid of this linebacker or safety that's going to clobber you. And you need to come down with this catch. And I need to know you're going to be okay with doing that. And he's like, bruh, I can run anything you need me to run, take any hit you need me to take. I'm tougher than you think. This dude's tough as nails, man. Dude's tough as shit. And that was probably the most refreshing thing that I saw out of him was, man, this guy's tough. On 3rd and 6, they're looking for him. On 1st and 10, they're looking for him. On 2nd and 11, they're looking for him. On 3rd and 9, they're looking for him. And it's not just go balls, even though when you run a 4.32 40, as Scott Miller does, you're going to run by guys. I watched him run past corners and safeties alike. But on 3rd and 6, with the game on the line, and they need it, it's pretty damn impressive that they're going to a 5'11", 166-pound slot receiver. And he's coming down with the football. He was one of the most productive receivers in all of D1 FBS football. All right. This guy was outstanding. And when his team needed him most, he came up with big catch after big catch. They weren't very good at Bowling Green, and they knew they had to key in on Scott Miller, and he still delivered week in, week out. I'm uber impressed here. Hey, Bucks, meet Scott. Scott, meet Bucks. This should be a very, very nice marriage. I think you two will like each other a lot. Here, in the 6th round, 208th pick overall, wide receiver out of Bowling Green, Scott Miller, for me, is my comp for him is Taylor Gabriel, the ex-Cleveland Brown, ex-Atlanta Falcon, now Chicago Bear. Speedy guy, can do a lot of things on the football field. I think that Scott Miller's a little tougher than Taylor Gabriel, can do a little bit more than Gabriel, but the explosion is there with both football players, and they're similar in stature and size. 7th round, 215th overall pick, defensive lineman out of Mizzou, Terry Beckner Jr. rounds out this Buccaneers draft. So Terry Beckner Jr. is a guy that, look, I don't really know if you're going to get anything out of him. I don't even know if he's going to make your football team, but this is one of those guys you just throw a dart at the dartboard, see if it sticks. There's talent here. I liken him more to one of these guys that in basketball, if you're an American, McDonald's All-American, and you have a subpar college career, guys always go back, scouts and GMs always go back to, I remember this guy in 11th grade tearing up the high school circuit in New Jersey. I know this guy has it in him, and so I'm going to take him and see if I can resurrect his career. That's how I feel about Terry Beckner Jr. You needed D-line help. I don't know if he's going to provide it, but it's a D-lineman nonetheless. Let's take it off the list. So, 7th round, 215th pick, 6'4", 296, stands Terry Beckner Jr. A boomer bust prospect with potentially high ceiling, a tremendously low floor. Athleticism and raw ability give the former top 10 national recruit a chance to make it in the NFL. Meanwhile, 2 ACL tears, both left and right, and a torn MCL, a weed suspension, and inconsistent play makes Beckner a massive question mark. If Beckner wants an NFL career, he'll have to get stronger and focus on the minute details, which includes trying to win more individual snaps and more consistency. There are times, like the first play I watched the game against Kentucky. The very first play I watched, he gets his ass blown 5 yards off the ball. I'm like, shit, that wasn't a double team or nothing. He just got his ass whooped. And I'm like, this can't be life for Terry Beckner. This can't be. All right. Then you watch him in other plays, and he's swim moving, getting into the backfield. And I'm like, where was that shit earlier? You know? Here's a guy that has had a 7.5 sack season. Last year was only 3.5. What's the difference? I don't know. But obviously the injuries play a major part. I didn't go far back enough to watch him, but listening to people talk, he's not the same guy. And obviously, he probably shouldn't be the same guy. You tear your left ACL and MCL and then turn around and tear your right one the very next year, you're probably not going to be the same player you once were in high school and even early on in your collegiate career. So he's one of those guys that you may be chasing the ghost of past Terry Beckner Jr. And you may never catch up to him. But if he's solid enough, he may make your roster. I didn't see it. I didn't see a guy that had enough in the tank, that had enough consistency to be a guy that's going to be a contributor on an NFL roster. Again, if he is a contributor, it's in a limited rotational depth capacity only. And so, again, he's a 7th round pick. So what do you expect, right? But nonetheless, 7th round, 215th pick overall, defensive lineman out of Mizzou, Terry Beckner Jr. for me. His comp is Kendall Reyes. He is So as you can see, the Buccaneers pretty much hit for average. If there's one concern I have is that you didn't address running back in this draft. I thought that you could have added some more depth, no more Jaquiz Rogers. And again, health is going to be paramount for you because I don't really love what you have. If Andre Ellington makes this roster, which again, with Bruce Arians as your head coach and him having some familiarity with Bruce Arians' system, I would be shocked if he didn't make this roster. I just don't really know if you have enough. You might have enough, but I'm not sure. I'll just say that. In any event, you hit for average. You know, it wasn't a lot of power shots in this draft, just a lot of doubles. I'm not impressed, but, you know, I'm excited about Scott Miller. I'm excited about your first pick in this draft, 5th overall linebacker, Devin White. And I think Jamel Dean could be a crown jewel if he gets his act together and continues to ascend. We'll see. I have a lot. You drafted a kicker, for gosh sake. I mean, what more can I say? Other than let's take a look at the score. So that's going to do it for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their 2019 NFL Draft wrap-up series here on the Louie Tee Network. I thank you for joining me. Remember, if you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to Louie Tee Network for more great content in 2019 and beyond. Hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. Turn that bell on so you don't miss a thing when we're talking Bucs football or any of the other 31 teams in the National Football League. Also, make sure you check out the Louie Tee Network podcast, available on all platforms, available on Stitcher, Google Music Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, and of course the website, louieteenetwork.net. So, no excuses. Check out the podcast. Great content there as well. Can't thank you enough. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage. It could be. Come back and join me, man. I've got plenty more where this came from. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie T. Have a good one.
Louie Tee Network.